Chapter 7 Investing in Light of the Big Cycle. The game I play for handling both my life and my career is to try to figure out how the world works, develop principles for dealing with it well, and then place my bets. The research that I'm sharing with you in this book was done for that purpose. Naturally, when I look at all what I have covered up to this point, I think about how it applies to my investing. For me to be comfortable that I'm doing that well, I need to know how my approach would have worked through time. If I cannot confidently explain what happened in the past, or at least have a strategy for dealing with it in light of what I don't know, I consider myself dangerously negligent. As you saw from my study of the last 500 years up to now, there were big cycles of great accumulations and great losses of wealth and power, and of these, the greatest contributing factor was the diet and the capital markets cycle. From an investor's perspective, this could be called the big investing cycle. I felt that I needed to understand these cycles well enough to tactically move or diversify my portfolio to be protected against them and or to profit from them. By understanding them and ideally realizing where countries are in their cycles, I can do that. Over my roughly 50 years as a global macro investor, I discovered many timeless and universal truths that form my principles for investing. While I won't get deeply into all of them here, but will discuss most of them in my next book, Principles, Economics, and Investing, I will convey one important principle. All markets are primarily driven by just four determinants: growth, inflation, risk premiums, and discount rates. This is because all investments are exchange of lump sum payments today for future payments. What these future cash payments will be is determined by growth and inflation. What risk investors are willing to take in investing them as compared to having cash in hand is the risk premium, and what they are worth today, which is called their present value, is determined by the discount rate. How these four determinants change drives how investment returns change. Government influence these factors through their fiscal and monetary policies. As a result, interactions between what governments want to happen and what is actually happening are what drive these cycles. There is a difference between what central governments and central banks do in order to drive market returns and economic conditions. Central government determine where the money they use comes from and goes to because they can tax and spend, but they cannot create money and credit. Central banks, on the other hand, can create money and credit, but cannot determine what the money and credit go into in the real economy. To me, each investment asset reflects these drivers in its own way. That is logical in light of the effects on its future cash flows. Each investment asset is a building block for a portfolio, and the challenge is to put together a portfolio well in light of these things. My goal is to put these building blocks together in a portfolio that is well diversified and tactically tilted based on what is happening or is going to happen in the world that is affecting these four drivers. I understand that my approach is different from that of most investors for two reasons. First, most investors don't look for analogous periods because they think history and old investment returns are largely irrelevant to them. Second, they don't look at investment returns through the lenses I just described.